Great Debaters Contest is brought to you by Safaricom M-Pesa.
Welcome to this epic edition of the Great Debaters Contest. We're glad you're watching. I'm Mariam Bishar.
And I am Austin Nyambok.
If you consider yourself a law-abiding citizen, it might be easy for you to judge the average sex worker without knowing the trials they go through. So today we're asking if sex work should be decriminalized in Africa to better control the spread of STDs.
Proposing this motion, we have Mbooni girls who have said to their opponents that the status quo is not an option. As for the opposers, we have Strathmore High School, who have something very small and short. Verbo veritas. They bring the truth. So let us see who the great debater will be.
We'll now hand the stage over to the first proposer. You have 3 minutes.
Sex work is the engagement in sexual activities for material gain. Decriminalize is a word that has its roots as crime. And what is crime? Crime is something that is illegal. So decriminalizing here means making something that was illegal to be legal, something that was unacceptable to be acceptable. STDs stands for sexually transmitted diseases, and some of the examples are syphilis, chancroid, HIV and AIDS, just but to mention a few. Let us not pretend that we do not have sex work going on in Africa, even though it is criminalized. We do not solve a problem by ignoring it, but by devising ways of coping with it. Decriminalizing sex work is all about the government collecting data of the sex workers, statistics behind the sex work, planning and executing the plans so as to control the STDs. This is to mean that if there are good plans, we are going to have sex education carried out. And if we have sex education carried out, of course we're going to get a control for the STDs. Decriminalizing sex work in Africa is going to mean that underage persons are not going to be involved in the business. You may wonder how. When we talk about decriminalizing, we are involving the government. We are going to regulate the sex work. This is to mean that underage persons are not going to take part in this kind of business, and as a result, we are going to control STDs. Let's take an example of here in Kenya, at the coast in mostly Mombasa and Malindi. We have so many children who are taking part in sex work, which is a crime. So if we legalize this, it is going to mean that the children are not going to be involved in any way in carrying out this kind of business. Let us not pretend. Children or underage persons lack survival skills. And as a result, they are going to be easily manipulated into sex work, and this is going to mean that they are going to easily contract STDs. If you've noticed, in Africa, the major cause of these STDs is engagement in sex work under the influence of drugs. Most people use drugs so as to carry out these activities, and as a result, they end up committing more crime as they are going to take part in sex work under the influence of drug, which is going to make them contract the disease simply because they cannot make a choice. Thank you.
First proposer, you may begin. You have 3 minutes.
A, B, C. Now, those are the first 3 letters that you learn as a child. I hope it can also be something that we consider extremely simple, that we call it as simple as A, B, C, exactly. Now, my opponent has done a relatively good job of defining the terms, but there is one word, one very key word that she didn't define, and that's control. What do we mean by control? You see, the motion doesn't state control the spread of STDs, and that means, therefore, that control the spread of STDs can have 2 meanings, and for all purposes and intents, I want it to have both. Number 1, preventing the transmission of the disease from the person who has it to the person who doesn't. Number 2, curing the person who has the disease and therefore making them unable to pass it to the person who doesn't. Right. Now that that is cleared, let's get to this matter of underage prostitution. Now, I honestly do not understand where that came from. Well, we're talking about prostitution, right? So it has some bearing, but what does it have to do with STDs? My opponent talked about it, but I didn't quite understand that connection. And so I'd like to challenge them to give us an answer on that matter. I'd also like to challenge them on the methods that they would like to use inside sex work to prevent STDs. And here's my thinking. Now, an STD is transmitted by sex. Now, if we decriminalize sex work, what we have effectively said is, it is okay. It is okay, you can have sex. Have it a lot. In fact, have it more than you are currently having it. Now, if we are having more sex than, well, if we were to have more sex than we have now, logically, okay, well, that might be a bit of a misconception because not all of us are having sex, but let's work with that scenario, right? Let's work with the scenario that we were having sex, and by the decriminalization, we have more sex. Now, by logic, if we have more sex, we transmit more diseases. Is that not true? Therefore, the method that they have suggested is not actually a method, by the way. It's like a room, you see. It's a room that needs to be filled with people, the people being the solutions. Now, if you pass through that door and come out at that door, all you've done is, well, if the room was called sex work, all you've done is walked in and out of sex work, and you've probably come out with your STD. We don't know what is inside this room that's going to stop you from getting it in the first place. So I'd like them to tell us more about that. What do they mean by controlling STDs? Thank you.
We'll now have cross-examinations.
Nguku Stella, Mbooni girls. Honorable opposers just asked what controlling means. Controlling is finding a suitable method to reduce the chances of contracting STDs. And yet, he also asked for clarification about the underage issue, child prostitution. Well, as my first proposer said, underage children are being manipulated because they lack social skills. They are being manipulated by these people because they lack social skills. If we make sex work legal, well, that means we have rights. That means we put an age standard. If I say only adults are the only ones who are going to be involved in the sex work, then that is a law I'm passing. And that means that child prostitution is going to reduce by a very big percentage. So legalizing sex will actually involve the government. I know you're asking me why and how. Well, actually, the government has to be involved. We have the NGOs. The government has to come up with organizations to control these things because they are directly involved in it. They will come up with special clinics for the commercial sex workers, for the checkups, to make sure they are educated about sex, on how they should just go about it. And ignoring sex actually does not offer a solution to the problem. You know, you can't solve a problem by ignoring it. Well, actually, we should be concentrating on how to manage the problem, and that's the part where controlling comes in. Let's take, for example, Netherlands. It's an outside country, a very developed country, actually. 5% of their economic income comes from sex work. The revenue collected by the government, after the taxes and all that stuff, it is channeled back to the health services. It is channeled back to help these people. We can't ignore them. They are part of us. They are part of Africa. And they're only forced to go there because of their circumstances. Economic suppresses them to go there. Legalizing sex will bring about competition among the brothels. You know, business remains to be business at the end of the day. If we offer the same quality service and I just add some little bit of spice in my services, then that means I stand a better chance than you. That means I get more customers than you. That brothels will provide quality services. I know they'll provide quality services. I know you're asking me what quality services they are going to provide. Actually, if they guarantee services from sex workers who are non-infected. And I know you're asking me about the infected ones. Actually, how they will solve that problem is to engage them in sexual activities that do not require intimacy. Take, for example, there's the table dancing, there's the massage parlors. They can work everywhere there. Thank you.
We'll now hear the cross-examination of the opposing team. You have 3 minutes.
I like the way they brought out about sex. If sex work was decriminalized, how the sex workers could work in massage parlors. Is that sex work? And they talked about countries in Africa that have legalized sex work. Do you know that in the DRC, a baby was born blue? Yes, the color of my sweater, the color of the sky, blue. I know none of you have ever seen a blue baby. That's absurd. You know why? STDs. The lady, or the baby rather, was born to the lady who was a sex worker, contracted gonorrhea. Yes. His eyes were glued shut. Pus seeping from his eyes, green, yellow, thick, slimy, as it dripped into his mouth. The doctors said that it was so repulsive, the smell, that they couldn't stand it. Yes, economic benefit, but where are we taking our children? More sex, more death, more people getting STDs. We don't want that, do we? Now, let's go to Mozambique. Yes, another country that legalizes sex work. A baby was found blowing a condom. A condom. If you found your little brother, your little sister blowing a condom, what would you do? You beat them up, as some people in the audience are saying. You tell them to their parents. But the lady who was the mother to this boy found the boy blowing a condom, and she threw it away from his mouth, naturally. But no education. She did not go to the hospital. 5 months later, the baby gets an ill feet. The baby goes to the hospital, sick. He has an STD. He didn't have sex. He was not a prostitute. But the thing is, that condom was said to come from a sex worker. She disposed of it. She threw it away. The baby blew it. The baby wanted to be a doctor. Now he's the one getting treated. Your life changing like that. Gone. That's what they want us to accept. Sex work, legalizing sex work, legalizing sex work. Oh, not me, not us, not Africa. Thank you.
If you got M-Pesa and you're stuck in a jam and you need moolah, just scroll and tap and pop, you be balling. If you're running low on credit, don't fret, just scroll and ball, because you got M-Pesa. When you're chilling with your friends and at the club and the way ain't got change, just M-Pesa and you'll be cool. And toast to M-Pesa. Don't bother leaving your seat to pay your bills. Just get the pay bill number and pay up, because get your fees in time with M-Pesa. Stay cool with M-Pesa.
Take part in the M Challenge by sending your short song, rap or poem about Safaricom M-Pesa on WhatsApp, and you could win 1,000 shillings in Safaricom airtime.
Question for the proposers.
My name is Mirran Gishar from Bishop Katimugandu, and my question is, he said, for example, in Mombasa there is child prostitution. What exactly do you mean by child? Could you emphasize on the age bracket?
My name is Thomas Ndongo from Nyeri High School. So the second opposer talked about a child blowing a condom and such stuff. So do you want to imply that that case cannot be found in Kenya because sex work is illegal here?
Third proposer, take the stage.
My name is Jaina Cheng from Mbooni Girls. Children are being forced by circumstances to venture into the business. They are being manipulated because they lack social survival skills. Now you're asking, what happens when we make the business legal? It is a business. It becomes legitimate. So only adults take part in the business. Therefore, we are excluding the underages from the business. I would like to strongly ask a question to our opposers. They are telling us much of stories, but I like to give you much of solutions to how to control STDs. Now, according to World Health Organization, in Senegal, that is in 1998, legislation of commercial sex has led to less than 1% of pregnant mothers having AIDS. Now you're asking, this is a very small percentage, less than 1% having AIDS. Because of what? Legalization of sex work. We make it legal. We educate the public. We are forming a platform for educating them on how to protect themselves from STDs. You know, ignorance is one problem we have in Africa. Ignoring the problem is not forming a solution. Instead, managing it is the key factor. We cannot just ignore that people are contracting STDs and sex work is illegal. So we just sit and make it illegal. No, we have to form policies that should work. Social stigma is one reason why sex workers can't access treatment. This is as quoted by Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary of the UN. If even big organizations like the United Nations have already noted that stigmatization is a key factor in Africa, legalizing the business is going to accommodate the sex workers as human beings in the society. They are forced by circumstances to do this work. It is not out of free will. So legalizing the business is going to make them come out freely to health centers and seek medication. This will greatly control STDs. Thank you.
Third proposer, you may respond. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Ron Kipchumba from Strathmore School, and I will be opposing the motion. First off, I would like to answer the questions by my fellow student. He asked whether legalizing it would be any different here in Kenya. By it being legal, then more condoms will be available, more children will be able to blow those little balloons. Abstinence, 0% chance of infection. I repeat, 0% chance. Why live on the edge? Why take a chance? Fall? No. Be safe. Abstain. Culture. Africa, the land of heritage. Flocked by tourists from all over the world to come and see our culture. In The River and the Source by Margaret Ogola, the late and the great, in chapter 2, part 1, Nyabera was subjected to terror after her husband died. The purpose of terror was to stop a woman from jumping from man to man, and thus control the spread of any STDs. We're all familiar with the recent success of the JTL Fiber advertisement, Mr. Fiber. So if sex work was legal, then sex workers would be allowed to advertise their profession. Now imagine a little girl, your little girl, 6 years old, after seeing that, looks you straight in the eye, with that pretty little face of hers, her cute little smile, and she says, "Mommy, Daddy, I want to be just like that when I grow up." And on to what my opponent said, I think there is a discrepancy in the definition of the term sex work. Sex work is the voluntary, please note, voluntary, with complete willingness, selling of oneself for material or monetary gains. In conclusion, decriminalization of sex work is not going to solve the problem that we have. Sex work should remain criminal. Thank you.
Closing statements from both teams, beginning with the proposers. You have 1 minute.
Nyabera is just an example from works of literature when Africa was still primitive. Now, insanity is doing the same thing, the same way, expecting different results. Criminalization of sex work in Africa has offered no solutions to controlling STDs. Instead, globalization should be embraced. We are looking at the developed countries which have legalized sex work and found ways of regulating it, thus controlling STDs. So telling us to lean on the primitive side of Africa isn't helping at all. We should manage the problem by globalizing like the other countries. And at the end of the day, we shall have happier, safer, and healthier sex workers. Mbooni girls, we rest our case.
Posers, you have a minute.
Who talked about globalization? I thought we were talking about decriminalization. So look, it's all very nice to say, look, the West has done it, it's working for them, it's working in the East, but we're talking about Africa. If it doesn't work in Africa, it shouldn't happen. It's that simple. I have something to show you. This is a condom. It's new, by the way, and it was bought for the purposes of this debate and this debate alone. But this is a condom. This condom is available in a supermarket. I bought it for 50 bob, as well as with 3 other condoms. So 50 shillings for 4 condoms. This kind of condom is also available almost anywhere. In almost every single government office, they have a free condom dispenser. Right, now, so we are talking about having safe sex, having nicer, happier, healthy sex workers, but this thing isn't going to stop them. Remember, it's being touted as the savior of humanity. It's not going to work. You know why? Because the HIV virus is 100 times smaller than any pore in this condom. Now, for us to have happier, safer prostitutes, sex workers, porn actors even, this can't be used, and neither can that idea. It's simply not going to work. Because as my opponents haven't explained to us, we don't know how it's going to work. We know what it's going to do, but how? They haven't told us.
One of the things that you want to do as a debater is you do not want the audience to forget who you are. And you do that by saying something extremely powerful or being a very powerful speaker. And being the first person, to come on stage, we needed the punch. And I think that's why the rest of us feel that if Jane did that, then your team would have been, at an advantage. But having said that, I think, the motion was a difficult one, but the two teams did justice.
In simple terms, Strathmore, sometimes you build a case in a way that makes you very difficult to follow, but you are still on course. Wayaki, you're a strong debater, and I think something about Strathmore is your ability to persuade. And the only way you can persuade people is to get to their emotions, get to their feelings. Once you can touch my emotions, believe you me, because debate is about belief, changing the beliefs of a person, so that I accept what you're saying or I reject what you're saying. And once you can get to my emotions, believe you me, I'll accept what you're saying.
I would say that both teams did justice, knowing that very well that some of you did not have, the motion may have favored others and may not have favored the others, but you did well in all that you did in your research and all, and I wish you all the best.
Mbooni girls, the judges saw it fit to give you 69.4%. Please give them a round of applause. 69.4, that's Mbooni girls. Strathmore School, the judges awarded you with 73.3%, and you are our winners for the debate.
Bravo to both teams. It was a very heated debate, and we thank them for enlightening us on this issue. We hope to see them all in the future because it's a game of numbers, so Mbooni might still have a chance. But from all of us here at the Great Debaters Contest, thank you for watching. I am Mariam Bishar.
And I am Austin Nyambok.
Great Debaters Contest was brought to you by Safaricom M-Pesa.